Though for the sake of sounding cooler than a janitor with student debt, let's call me Theo. Been married to my wife, Nora, for 8 years now. I won't lie and say it's always been rainbows and violins because, well, no relationship is. But at the start, it was solid. I tried to be the best man I could for her. Supportive, steady, the guy who buys the wrong brand of almond milk, but means well. And she was a loving partner in her own way too. Bit of context. I'm between careers right now, which is a fancy way of saying I clean things for a living but have big dreams. Most of my life I've done custodial work. Pay isn't amazing, but hey, toilets don't lay you off. Been with the same agency for years, never had to panic about work. Problem is, I don't exactly bring home the kind of paycheck that makes you want to frame it on the wall. So, I've been taking night classes, trying to crawl my way into a career that doesn't require latex gloves and a mop bucket. Now, Nora, she's the ambitious one. High-powered businesswoman in finance. Picture the type who could fire you, buy your company, and then sell it back just for sport. When we first got married, she was still hustling for internships, eating ramen with me, and counting change from the couch cushions. Then, boom, she got her MBA, shot up the corporate ladder like a firework, and now she's basically Gordon Gekko in heels. Expensive suits, jewelry that probably costs more than my car, and speaking of cars, yeah, hers is nicer too. And you know what? At first, I was thrilled for her. I never thought her making more money would mess with our relationship. And it didn't. For a while. I'm not a slacker, by the way. I work full-time and juggle night classes. In fact, she was the one who pushed me to take classes in the first place. She'd say things like, Theo, you're smart. You can do more than just scrub gum off the bleachers. Which, thanks babe, nothing makes a man feel more heroic than being reminded of his gum-scraping legacy. But a few months ago, something shifted. She started showing me this side of herself I'd never seen before. Let's call it boardroom Nora. For example, there was this one day. I'd been playing some video games to unwind before I had to head out to class. So picture this. I just wrapped up a shift cleaning up messes that could qualify as biological warfare. Didn't even have time to grab a nap. I dragged myself home, freshened up, and thought, you know what, Theo? You deserve 20 minutes of Overwatch before diving headfirst into night classes. Cue my wife, Nora, walking in like the ghost of corporate success. She takes one look at me, controller in hand, headset on, and goes, really? Gaming? While you're still a failure. I swear, my character in-game didn't even get shot before my actual soul took critical damage. That one stung. Totally unlike her, too. I was sitting there blinking at the screen thinking, did she just patch in my mom's dialogue pack? I tried to keep it civil. Look, I just got off a shift, okay? I'm doing my best here. Just needed to unwind before heading out to class. But nope. She doubled down. Lazy bum. Well, that flipped my switch and I responded, cold witch. And there we were. Two adults in a marriage that was once built on love and respect, reduced to a live-action episode of Jerry Springer. We went back and forth, neither of us looking good. And trust me, sarcasm loses its sting after the third round. It stuck with me, though, because I literally had to cut the fight short, toss on my backpack, and run off to class like some sitcom husband whose life is spiraling. Came back a few hours later, bracing myself for round 2, but she was acting like it never even happened. Just scrolling on her phone like she hadn't called me a bum to my face. No apology. No hey, maybe I overreacted. Nada. I was sore about it for a while, but eventually, I let it slide. I figured, she's under a lot of stress at work. She bosses people around all day. Maybe she forgot to switch off CEO mode. I didn't want to be the guy who just takes disrespect lying down, but I also didn't want to go nuclear over what might have been a one-off. Then about a month ago, it became crystal clear. This wasn't work stress. This was something else entirely. Her personality towards me just flipped. Like she woke up one morning and downloaded the Belittle Husband 2.0 expansion pack. Suddenly, everything was a fight. What I wore, how I spent my free time, even the way I said thank you to a waiter once. Apparently, I said it too cheerfully. And then came the little dagger comments, sneaky ones, wrapped in this fake, innocent packaging. Like, if I asked her about her day, she'd tilt her head, smile sweetly, and say, oh, well, Greg was telling me about how he just closed a big deal. He's such a real man. You know, someone who actually provides for his family. Let me remind you, because apparently, my wife needed reminding on a weekly basis. I'm not a bum. I bust my butt at work, I cover my share at home, and I'm literally in night classes trying to level up my life. Just because I don't make Gordon Gekko money doesn't mean I'm lying around in sweatpants eating Cheetos all day. But every time she dropped one of those real man comments, it was like an alarm bell went off. Boom, argument time. We'd go at it for hours. Honestly, if we charged pay-per-view for our fights, I might have actually made enough to impress her. And here's the weirdest part. I started to suspect she liked it. Like, genuinely enjoyed fighting. She'd throw her passive-aggressive grenade. I'd blow up. She'd yell back. We'd scream ourselves hoarse. And then the next day, she's humming in the kitchen like she hadn't just verbally drop-kicked me into the abyss. It reminded me of those people who think peaceful relationships are boring. You know the type. Rom-com enthusiasts who believe true love means throwing plates and then making out on the broken shards. It was starting to feel like she was one of those. And me? I'm standing there thinking, lady, I just wanted to eat spaghetti in peace, not reenact World War III. By this point, I realized I'd landed myself in a toxic relationship. But here's the kicker. I still wanted it to work. 8 years together, a lot of good times. It felt wrong to throw it all away because she'd suddenly decided sarcasm was her love language. So, I thought about couples counseling. Picture us in a room with some therapists scribbling notes while Nora leans back in her Armani suit, arms crossed, saying, well, doctor, the problem is my husband doesn't earn 6 figures. Still, I was willing to try, because I genuinely wanted this relationship to survive, even with her recent behavior. I didn't want to give up without at least attempting some kind of repair job. And then she reached a new low. She got bolder, less passive-aggressive, more aggressive-aggressive. Suddenly she's dropping comments like she's auditioning for a soap opera villain, talking loudly on the phone about how she needed someone who could keep up with her lifestyle, or someone who could really excite her. Naturally, I confront her. Who exactly are you talking about there, Nora? The pool boy we don't have. And she'd smirk, tilt her head, and gaslight me into oblivion. Oh, Theo, you're overreacting again. You always miss the context. Oh, of course. Context. My bad. The context was probably her saying it louder, so I'd definitely hear it. She was so good at this game, though, that I actually started questioning myself. Like, maybe she was just talking about her new Peloton instructor? Maybe I am insane. That's when it hit me. I hated being in my own house. My sanctuary had turned into a corporate battlefield. Some days I'd finish work and actually dread going home. And still, despite the obvious red flags waving harder than cheerleaders at a football game, I stayed. Because I was trying, against all odds, against all sarcasm, to be optimistic about repairing our relationship. There was this one evening, she came home tipsy from some work dinner. You know that half-drunken, glassy-eyed grin where everything's suddenly hilarious? Yeah, that. She was in a good mood for once, so I thought I'd take advantage. So, how was dinner? She plopped down on the couch, kicked her heels off like she was in a shoe commercial, and said, ugh, I'm so jealous of my coworkers' wives. They actually know how to show a woman a good time. And I just sat there blinking, controller still in my hand, thinking, great, I guess I'll add can't show wife a good time to the growing list of things I'm apparently failing at. Pretty sure that was the day things took a sharp nosedive, the day the beginning of the end kicked off. Fast forward a few nights later. She's working on her laptop in the living room while I'm sitting right beside her, minding my own business. She heads to the bedroom to grab something, and for once, she leaves her screen unlocked. That was weird enough on its own because normally she guards that laptop like it's the nuclear codes. And there it was. An email. Right there in bold letters. Flirty, but vague enough for her to wiggle out of it if I said anything. Like, oh, Theo, you're misinterpreting. You don't understand office humor. Yeah, sure. I pictured how the confrontation would go. So, who's this email for? Nora would roll her eyes. You're overreacting again. It's just workplace banter. Don't be insecure. Right, of course. Totally my bad for being allergic to winky faces. So, I told myself it was nothing. Just let it go. When she came back into the room, I pretended I hadn't seen a thing. We went on with the evening like I hadn't just gotten sucker punched in the gut. I tried to forget about it. Seriously, I did, but then it happened again. Another email. Same guy. Tyrone. Yes, his name is Tyrone. Of course it is. Because if my marriage is going to implode, it's going to implode with someone named Tyrone. This one, oh, it was a doozy. She's telling him how she's so bored all the time at home. And he replies, at least work is always exciting. And then, boom, she fires back a winky face. Two thoughts hit me right then. Either she was cheating, or she had one of those work-husband situations, which, newsflash, isn't much better. She was leaving this stuff out on purpose. Like, breadcrumbing me with her digital affair. And I know it sounds crazy, but come on. Miss Confidentiality is sacred, suddenly leaving flirty emails open on the family couch? That's not a slip. That's theater. This time, though, I got smart. Pulled out my phone, snapped a picture of the screen. No confrontation, no gaslighting round 3. Nope. My plan was to play it cool, keep my head down, and wait. If she kept doing it, I'd gather all the receipts until I was absolutely 100% sure of what was going on. 3 weeks later, and there's no doubt in my mind, she wants me to see these messages. At this point, she's leaving her laptop open like it's a department store display model. Her phone, unlocked, face up, buzzing with notifications like she's begging me to scroll. And sure enough, Tyrone. Always Tyrone. Mr. At least work is always exciting. If smugness had a human form, it'd probably be him. But here's the kicker. There were 2 other guys too. She tried the same routine on them. Flirty comments, little winky emojis, batting digital eyelashes. And bless those men, they shut it down immediately, like HR was standing right over their shoulders. That was a small relief. I mean, yes, my wife is out here auditioning for a most desperate attention seeker of the year, but at least not every man on earth is buying tickets to the show. Didn't change the fact, though, she was actively shopping for attention, tossing lines in the water just to see who'd bite. And Tyrone? Oh, he bit. Hard. They were trading flirty emails like teenagers with unlimited texting plans. I'd scroll through screenshots later, jaw tightening, thinking, of course it's Tyrone. Why couldn't she pick someone boring, like Gerald in accounting, who collects stamps and talks about the weather? The reason I'm even sharing all this is because it finally clicked a few days ago. All those snide comments. All the digs about me not being a real man. Leaving these digital breadcrumbs lying around like Hansel and Gretel's trail of infidelity. This wasn't just about cheating, or maybe not even about cheating at all. This was her game. Some twisted, sadistic hobby. I swear, she was doing it just to get a rise out of me. Like, what's this, Nora? Another winky face to Tyrone. Nora said with mock innocent. Oh, Theo, you're overreacting again. You don't understand the context. And boom, Gaslight City. Every single time. So, I stopped giving her the fireworks show. I told myself, if this is a game, then I'm not playing. She wasn't going to get the satisfaction of me losing it. Instead, I went stealth mode. Collected evidence. Screenshots of every flirty message, every winky face, every time Tyrone liked her little office anecdotes. I was building a case, airtight enough to make Judge Judy proud. When I finally confronted her, I wanted zero chance of being gaslit into apologizing for daring to have eyeballs. And the way she went about it was infuriating. If I was studying at my desk, she'd sashay over, lean on the chair, chat for a minute, and then oh so casually drop her phone right on my notes. Messages wide open. If I was gaming, she'd plop down on the couch next to me, toss her phone on the coffee table, screen glowing like a neon sign. Look, Theo, look. Tyrone thinks I'm funny. And the whole time, oh, the smirk. That smug little smirk on her face like we were both in on what she was doing. It's like, since I couldn't be the rich husband she always fantasized about, she decided, fine, I'll turn him into my personal chew toy. Real classy. So whenever she wasn't around, I'd grab her phone like I was auditioning for CSI, Suburban Marriage Division. Screenshots, photos, timestamps, the whole 9 yards. I know. I'd promised myself I wouldn't confront her until I had the full smoking gun evidence. Build the airtight case. Wait for the perfect courtroom moment. But the stress was eating me alive. Anxiety gnawing at my brain, sleep gone, grades slipping. And coming home from work? Forget it. I dreaded stepping through the front door like it was a haunted house. Then came the nuclear bomb. A message from Tyrone. Good ol' Mr. Exciting. It read, last night was amazing. Miss you. And my stomach just dropped. Because guess where she was the night before? Oh right, working late. Yeah, apparently she was working on Tyrone. I tried to stay calm. I really did. Took the screenshot, filed it neatly in my wife is trash folder, but the calm lasted all of 10 seconds. My headspace wasn't built for this. The dam broke. Next thing I know, I'm storming into the living room like a man possessed, waving her phone like it's Exhibit A at a murder trial. Did you sleep with Tyrone? And her reaction? Not shame, not denial, not even a fake tear. Nope, she laughed. Actually laughed in my face. And what if I did? That's when my jaw hit the floor, and I realized I'd apparently married the Joker. But she wasn't done. Oh no, she doubled down. Do you even have the balls to leave me? You won't. You can't. You need me. And right then, whatever faint glimmer of hope I'd been clinging to, of counseling, of repairing this wreck, snuffed out like a candle in a hurricane. She didn't see me as her husband anymore. Nope. In her eyes, I was just some pathetic little worm who couldn't fight back. Now, was it true that I'd been taking it on the chin for weeks? Sure. But only because I was gathering evidence, not because I was rolling over. I wanted to shout that at her. Instead, I just stood there, slack-jawed, and she continued. She said I was lucky to marry up, that I was a failure who needed her to support me while I was playing my games and taking my little classes. Oh, fantastic. My life's work summarized in the tone you'd use to describe a 5-year-old finger painting with mud. I couldn't find the words to say, because honestly, what do you say to that? Gee, honey, thanks for the TED Talk on how useless I am. As usual, I knew what she said was complete garbage. I didn't rely on her. We both contributed to the household. But hearing it still cut me deep, like a rusty butter knife through an already bruised ego. You can't imagine what it feels like to hear those words from someone you thought actually loved you. I mean, I came up from a poor upbringing, scraped myself together, and while I wasn't lucky enough to bag some MBA from a shiny Ivy League palace, I was doing my best with what I had. Sure, my classes weren't champagne and caviar glamorous, but they were mine. I even stopped talking to her about them, because every time I did, she found a way to kill the vibe. Picture me excitedly talking about passing a hard exam, only for her to ask if they handed out gold stars and juice boxes too. I felt so alone in that moment, and she just kept going, like she'd memorized a monologue and didn't want to waste the rehearsal. She said I was boring and weak and that the most fun she'd had recently was watching me squirm while she rubbed her affair. Yes, she actually capitalized that word with her tone, in my face. Yes, I'm banging Tyrone from work, she practically announced, like she'd just won a sweepstakes. And he makes me feel more alive than you ever have. Oh, congratulations. Should I send you to a fruit basket? Maybe balloons? Congrats on your new side piece. Sorry your husband didn't give you enough adrenaline rushes while folding laundry. Here's the thing though. There's something oddly freeing about finally knowing where you stand with someone. When I thought she loved me, every little thing she did chipped away at me. But now that I knew she hadn't loved me in a long while, her words lost their edge. It was like finding out the villain in a horror movie is just some dude in a Party City mask. I realized I didn't care what she thought anymore. I didn't care how she felt. In fact, I wanted her to stew in the mess she'd made. So, I told her flat out, shut up. And miracle of miracles, she actually did. Though, of course, she still had that aggravating smirk plastered on her face, like she'd just beaten me in a game of Uno. Then I laid it out for her. I'm not going to play your games anymore. You think I've just been sitting here crying into my ramen noodles? No, I've been busy. Every little message you sent me, I've been recording. I've been digging through your phone, gathering all your greatest hits, screenshots, videos, and those lovely photos you've been handing out like party favors. Oh, and don't worry, I've got the dates and times too, right down to the comments you've made. I told her straight up, I'm divorcing you. And not just that, I'm going to ruin you. That landed like a brick to the forehead. She gave this weird little bark of a laugh, like a hyena choking on a chicken bone. Huh, you ruin me? Please. Then, after about 5 seconds, her face shifted and she stammered, wait, you can't. You can't leave me. Oh, honey, watch me. I didn't even bother replying. I just turned around and went upstairs to start packing. Clothes, essentials, toothbrush, my dignity, which apparently had been collecting dust in the closet for years. I figured, if nothing else, the visual of me shoving socks into a duffel bag would get the point across. This wasn't just Theo sulking after another round of, let's see how many ways Harper can call me pathetic before dinner. This was real. She trailed behind me like some deranged sports commentator. You're pathetic. You'll come crawling back in a week. You think anyone else is going to want you? Sure, sweetheart, I muttered, folding underwear. Because nothing screams sexy like a woman who cheats with her coworker named Tyrone. What a prize you are. Then she switched gears. We have bills. We have a mortgage. You can't just leave. You wouldn't last 2 seconds without me. Wow, you sound like my mom, but somehow less nurturing. But here's the kicker. Through all the insults, excuses, and guilt tripping, not a single sorry left her mouth. Not one. It was almost impressive, like she was training for the Olympics of being an awful human. Bronze, silver, gold. She'd sweep the podium. And the lack of guilt? That was gasoline on my fire. If I couldn't wring an ounce of remorse out of her, fine. I'd settle for serving her a big fat slice of regret. When I finally zipped the bag and headed downstairs, she sprinted ahead and planted herself in the doorway like she was auditioning for Guardians of the Front Porch. Arms crossed, chin up, the hole you shall not pass, routine. You're not leaving me, she hissed. You are not going to humiliate me by walking out on this marriage. Relax, Gandalf, I said, nudging past her. I'll be sure to humiliate you in court instead. And that was that. No more words. I got in my car and drove off. End of scene. Fade to black. Cue applause. I ended up at my buddy's place, sitting on his lumpy couch with a beer in my hand and this newfound clarity in my head. I knew one thing for certain. I was going through with the divorce. No more hesitating, no more excuses. And not just that. I want to make her pay. The past few months have been hell for me. But hey, at least it's a different flavor of hell than before. Before it was eternal damnation with her nagging in surround sound. Now it's more like, DIY divorce hell with a side of freedom fries. And honestly, I came out happier than I could have imagined. As promised, my dear soon-to-be ex was served the divorce papers. She called me later, voice dripping with fake calm, and said, "I refuse to sign them, Theo. I know you're just lashing out." Oh, of course. My entire life's decisions are just one giant temper tantrum. Thanks, Dr. Freud. I told her flat out. Don't hold your breath. A few days later, she called again. Persistent, like a telemarketer with no quota. This time she said, "We should talk about it." I reminded her, "We already talked. You remember? The part where you didn't apologize once, and I packed my bags." Yeah, that was the talk. End of episode. Then she tried the classic gaslight special. "You've proved your point, Theo. You can come home now." Oh, bless her heart. Like I had just been staging an extended, overly dramatic walkout for effect. An adult version of holding my breath until I turned blue. I didn't even dignify that with a response. Silence is golden, especially when you know the other person is stewing in their own ego soup. Here's the thing, she wasn't sorry. Not even a whiff of remorse. And in a twisted way, I was glad. Because if she had apologized, even insincerely, I might have felt some shred of guilt. But since she didn't, well, that left me with a guilt-free buffet of revenge options. The divorce? That was just the appetizer. I had a full-course meal of payback lined up. My lawyer, God bless that saintly man, suggested we file on the grounds of infidelity. With the mountain of evidence I collected, we might as well have built a ski resort on it. Photos, texts, the whole sordid digital paper trail. My lawyer's eyes lit up like it was Christmas morning. And just to top it off with a cherry, we filed a restraining order to keep her from popping up like some unkillable horror movie villain, harassing me during the process. While the legal side was in motion, I got to work on my next step. Nora was obsessed with her career and reputation. You know the type, business cards sharper than a samurai sword, a LinkedIn profile that practically leaked smugness. She was a power player in her company and guarded her name cleaner than her kitchen counters, which, by the way, were spotless because God forbid a crumb ruin her image. So, naturally, I decided to weaponize her little shrine to professionalism. I spent a whole night compiling all of my evidence into an email. The messages with Tyrone and her two other colleagues were the centerpiece, of course. A real Nora's greatest hits collection. But I wasn't about to stop there. No, I made sure to include the part where she had left her work laptop unsecured. Rookie mistake for someone who pretends to be smarter than the rest of the world. I even sprinkled in a few emails and documents that looked very sensitive. You know, like garnishing the steak with just the right herb. Then I hit send. One glorious group email to all her coworkers. And before you ask, Theo, how did you get all their emails? Easy. I copied them down the same time I grabbed her other sensitive information. Turns out, snooping pays off better than her annual bonuses. At the time, I thought it was just her colleagues. But nope. Later I found out some clients were on the list too. Looking back, maybe I should have known that, but honestly, wouldn't have changed a damn thing. If anything, it worked better in my favor because now the company couldn't just sweep their star employee under the rug. And the fallout? Oh boy, I didn't have to wait long. I figured she'd call me, but nope. About 3 hours after I hit send, Nora showed up in person, banging on my door like a repo man with ADHD. She was screaming hysterically, her voice cracking like a dying smoke alarm. "You ruined my life, Tichio." Through the door, I calmly said, "You're violating the restraining order, Nora. Keep this up and I'll call the police." Did she stop? Of course not. She doubled down, kept shrieking and demanding that I open the door. If my lawyer had been around, he would have told me to stay quiet, keep the door locked, and dial 911. But my lawyer wasn't there, and honestly, I wanted to gloat. So, I cracked the door open with my best smug grin, and my phone held up to record. When I held the phone up, I made sure it was right in her line of sight, like one of those reality TV confession cams. If she was going to act unhinged, she might as well do it on record. "I've already reported this restraining order violation to the police," I said, nice and slow, enunciating like I was narrating a documentary on dumbest exes caught on tape. She didn't even blink at the phone. She just screamed, "Do you know what you've done to me? I can't come back from this." Oh, the drama. You'd think I had cast her in a Shakespeare tragedy instead of just hitting send on Gmail. The sight of her was glorious. My always perfectly groomed, power blazer-wearing wife looked like she'd just wrestled a raccoon in a rainstorm and lost. Her hair was sticking up at angles I didn't even know were possible without electricity. Her mascara was smeared down her face like she'd done a bad Joker cosplay. Red, puffy eyes. Blotchy foundation. Honestly, she looked like a witch they cut from the budget version of Hocus Pocus. And the best part? She was still in her work clothes. Blouse wrinkled, heels mismatched, one sleeve half rolled. Translation, fired. Or, at the very least, suspended so hard her badge probably melted. I just stood there, watching her unravel, and I felt nothing. No guilt, no sympathy. Just the sweet, caramel-smooth satisfaction of knowing I was the one who'd brought down the perfect woman. The same woman who had laughed in my face when I confronted her about cheating. Now she was on my doorstep, begging for scraps of dignity. I wanted to laugh in her face, but instead I tilted my head and asked, "Am I still boring?" That one hit her like a brick. She didn't even answer, just lunged at me like a feral cat. She got her claws into my face and neck, and let me tell you, she went full gremlin, scratching, grabbing, and I swear on my life, I think she actually tried to bite me. My ex-wife, ladies and gentlemen, reduced to trying to eat my nose like it was her last meal. I dropped my phone in the chaos, using one hand to keep her gnashing teeth away from my jugular. Luckily, I've got a good 40 pounds on her, so I shoved her back and slammed the door like I was evicting a raccoon from my kitchen. She didn't do much damage, just some scratches, more embarrassing for her than me, but I was already thinking ahead. Evidence. I snapped pictures of my face and neck immediately, making sure to catch the scratches in the best lighting, like I was about to upload them to victimsofpsychoexes.com. Meanwhile, she kept pounding on the door, screeching like a banshee, until the police showed up a few minutes later. They hauled her off, and I got my turn to answer questions. Naturally, I made sure to report the assault. After that, the divorce went so smoothly for me, I almost felt bad. Almost. She had the money to hire some fancy shark lawyer, the kind that probably advertises with a toothy grin and a tagline like, "We fight for you." Problem was, sharks need competent swimmers to represent, and Nora was more like a drowning cat. I mean, there was history of infidelity, documented, mind you, a violated restraining order, and, oh yeah, actual evidence of her clawing me up like a discount alley cat on camera. Add in months of psychological torment, and her lawyer probably started every morning by face-palming into his coffee. She tried to get alimony from me, because of course she did. Her whole shtick was, I deserved better. Except this time, my lawyer shredded that nonsense to bits. He stood up in court, smooth as butter, and said, "Your Honor, my client earns less money than Mrs. Perfect over here. Yet she wants him to pay her? After abusing him? This isn't spousal support. This is attempted extortion with extra steps." I wanted to stand up and clap, but I figured contempt of court wasn't a good look on me. Long story short, I didn't end up paying her a penny. Not a dime. Not even the lint in my pocket. Once the divorce was finalized, I felt free for the first time in months. Free from her criticism, her mind games, and that toxic energy that had been slowly killing off my will to live. Therapy is still ongoing. I mean, you don't just bounce back overnight after living with a psychological sniper, but at least now I can look in the mirror without hearing her voice narrating all my flaws. Nora, on the other hand, oh boy, karma showed up with popcorn and a front row seat. She managed to nuke her own career in record time. I found out she'd been tossed out of her company for being reckless with confidential information, translation, blabbing secrets like a gossiping teenager, and for having multiple inappropriate relationships at work. Shocking, I know. Who could have guessed she was an HR nightmare wrapped in high heels? A mutual friend told me she tried to start fresh in another city. The problem is, reputations travel faster than Uber Eats these days. Employers dig into candidates' histories like archaeologists, and guess what they found in hers? Oh, just an arrest record and enough red flags to decorate a communist parade. So, she applied for several junior-level positions. You know, starting back at the bottom rung. Except, plot twist, there's been essentially no luck anywhere. As for me, I've wrapped up my night classes. Big achievement considering half the time I was running on coffee, spite, and the sheer determination not to let Nora be the reason I ended up flipping burgers at 40. Now I'm out here interviewing for real jobs, the kind where people wear ties and don't scream at you for buying the wrong kind of oat milk. The interviews have actually gone better than I expected. Turns out when you're not being gaslit daily, you remember you're a halfway intelligent human being. One guy even said, "Theo, you have a very impressive background." I almost asked him if he was talking to the wrong candidate. My knee-jerk reaction was to look behind me for some guy in a suit with a better haircut. But no, he meant me. That's how far off Nora had skewed my self-image. She had me convinced I was barely qualified to breathe, and here I am, being told I could actually add value. It's like stepping out of her shadow flipped a switch. I see now how much I've been grinding, how much I've been pushing myself, and how much I've actually achieved. Amazing what happens when you're not living under the constant weight of someone else's drama. So, yeah, let me say this to every man who's listening. Your mental health is very important. Do not, under any circumstances, let a woman jeopardize that. I had to learn the hard way. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.